The Slow Tide. A healing fiction novel. Chapter 1. Arrival. The coastal highway unspooled before Maya like a ribbon of faded asphalt, each mile marker another small victory against the impulse to turn back. Her hands gripped the steering wheel at exactly 10 and 2, a habit from driver's ed that she'd never shaken, even after 15 years of commuting through San Francisco traffic. Control. That's what those positioned hands represented. The illusion of it, anyway. She'd left the city at dawn, when the fog still clung to the Golden Gate Bridge like a shroud. And now, 3 hours later, the morning had burned into something clear and almost painfully bright. The Pacific stretched endlessly to her left, a sheet of hammered silver that hurt to look at directly. Maya squinted behind her sunglasses, watching the waves roll in with a patience that seemed almost aggressive in its consistency. Wave after wave after wave. Don't they ever get tired? Her phone buzzed in the cup holder. She didn't look. She knew who it would be. Marcus. Again. Or maybe Priya from the office. Or her mother. Or any number of people who thought they knew what was best for her, who had opinions about her breakdown, their word, not hers, and her rash decision, also their phrase, to leave everything behind. Not everything. Just most things. Her apartment. Her job. Her carefully constructed life that had looked so perfect from the outside and felt so hollow from within. The phone buzzed again. Then fell silent. Maya pressed the gas pedal a fraction harder. The sign appeared around a curve so sudden she almost missed it. Welcome to Thornberry Bay. Population 1,847. Someone had spray-painted a correction below. 1,843 in cheerful yellow letters. Below that, in smaller print, give or take. She slowed, taking in the approach to town. Unlike the pristine coastal villages she'd passed earlier, the ones with artisanal cheese shops and galleries selling $3,000 landscape paintings to weekenders from Silicon Valley, Thornberry Bay had the weathered look of a place that had given up on impressing anyone. The main street, if you could call it that, consisted of maybe 24 buildings huddled together as if for warmth against the constant wind. A general store with a sagging porch. A post office the size of a garden shed. A diner called The Kettle with a hand-painted sign featuring a cheerful teapot that had seen better decades. Several empty storefronts with soap-smeared windows. And at the far end, where the road curved toward the beach, a faded blue building with peeling paint and a sign that read, Tides in Vacancy. Maya pulled into the gravel parking lot, killed the engine, and sat for a moment in the sudden silence. Through the windshield, she could see the ocean again, closer now, its rhythmic breathing audible even through the closed car windows. The sound that had haunted her dreams for months. The reason she was here. What am I doing? The thought arrived with the force of a punch to the sternum. She'd driven 3 hours. Left her apartment in the hands of a subletter she'd met exactly once. Resigned from the tech company where she'd worked for 7 years, climbing from junior designer to senior creative director, killing herself slowly with 14-hour days and the constant gnawing anxiety that she wasn't doing enough, being enough, achieving enough. And for what? To run away to some dying coastal town she'd found on a map while having a panic attack at 2 a.m. Her therapist's voice echoed in her mind. Running away or running toward? Does it matter? Maya had asked. It might, Dr. Chan had replied, in that infuriatingly neutral way of hers. Maya grabbed her purse and got out of the car. The wind hit her immediately. Cold, salt-sharp, relentless. It whipped her dark hair across her face and made her eyes water. She stood there for a moment, letting it buffet her, feeling small and insignificant in a way that was almost a relief. In San Francisco she'd been somebody. Senior Creative Director Maya Torres. The woman who'd rebranded 3 Fortune 500 companies before she turned 35. The one who always had the answer, always had the vision, always delivered. Here she was nobody. Just another person standing in a parking lot, trying to figure out what came next. The door to the inn was unlocked. Maya pushed it open and stepped into a small lobby that smelled of lemon oil and old wood. The interior was dim after the bright sunlight, and it took her eyes a moment to adjust. When they did, she found herself looking at a front desk that had probably been elegant in the 1960s, a worn velvet armchair near a window, and walls covered in black and white photographs of the town in its apparent heyday. Fishing boats in the harbor, crowds on the beach, a main street bustling with life. "Hello," Maya called. No response. Clock ticked somewhere. The building creaked gently like a ship at anchor. She approached the desk, where a small brass bell sat next to a guest register that looked older than she was. Before she could ring it, a door behind the desk opened and a woman emerged, carrying a stack of folded towels that reached almost to her chin. "Oh!" The woman stopped, peering around the towels. "I didn't hear anyone come in. Hold on, just let me." She deposited the towels on a chair and turned to face Maya, brushing her hands on her jeans. She was perhaps 60, with steel-gray hair pulled back in a practical ponytail and the kind of weathered face that spoke of decades spent near the ocean. Laugh lines radiated from her eyes, which were a startling pale blue against her tanned skin. She wore a flannel shirt rolled to the elbows and had the calm, unhurried manner of someone who'd long ago stopped letting the world rush her. "You must be Maya Torres," the woman said, her voice warm. "I'm Helen Reeves. We spoke on the phone." "Yes. Hi." Maya found herself relaxing slightly under the woman's steady gaze. "I know I'm a few hours early. If the room's not ready." "The room's been ready since yesterday," Helen interrupted gently. "And we're not exactly overwhelmed with guests at the moment." She gestured around the empty lobby with a wry smile. "As you might have noticed, Thornbury Bay isn't quite the tourist hotspot it used to be." "When was it a hotspot?" "Oh, the 60s, 70s. Before the highway bypass went in and everyone started going to Carmel and Monterey instead. We had a cannery back then. Fishing fleet. This place," she patted the desk affectionately, "used to be booked solid from May through September. Now," she shrugged philosophically, "now we mostly get the occasional hiker, someone who took a wrong turn, or people like you." "People like me." Helen's eyes crinkled with something that might have been understanding. "People who need somewhere quiet to figure things out." Maya felt a flash of defensive anger. "You don't know me," but it dissolved almost immediately into something closer to relief. 'Cause Helen was right. That's exactly what she was. "I don't know how long I'll stay," Maya said, the words coming out more abruptly than she'd intended. "I paid for 2 weeks, but I might leave sooner or I might. I'm not sure." "That's fine. We'll figure it out as we go." Helen reached under the desk and produced an actual key. Not a key card, but an old brass key on a wooden fob carved with the number 7. "You're on the 2nd floor, southeast corner. Best view in the house. The ocean's right there when you wake up." Maya took the key, feeling its unfamiliar weight. "Is there a schedule for breakfast or?" "We put out coffee and pastries in the dining room around 7. Help yourself whenever. There's a mini fridge and microwave in your room if you want to keep your own food. The kettle down the street does breakfast and lunch, dinner on weekends. There's a decent seafood place about 10 miles south if you want something fancier." Helen paused. "Though I should warn you, in Thornbury Bay we define fancy pretty loosely." "That's fine. I'm not really here for fancy." "No," Helen agreed quietly. "I didn't think you were." She came around the desk. "Come on, I'll show you up. You can grab your bags after." Maya followed Helen up a narrow staircase that creaked with each step, past the second-floor landing with its window overlooking the parking lot, to a door at the end of the hall. Helen unlocked it and pushed it open, stepping aside to let Maya enter first. The room was simple: a double bed with a blue quilt, a dresser that matched the vintage aesthetic of the lobby, a small table by the window with 2 chairs, and a door that presumably led to the bathroom. But it was the window that stopped Maya in her tracks. It took up most of the wall, and through it, she could see nothing but ocean and sky, the horizon line so crisp it looked drawn with a ruler. "Oh," Maya breathed. "Yeah," Helen said softly. "It gets people every time." She pointed to a door on the left wall. "Bathrooms through there. Towels in the cabinet. Wi-Fi password is on the note card by the bed. But I should warn you, the connection's pretty spotty. Especially when the weather's bad." "That's okay." Maya moved closer to the window, drawn by the endless expanse of water. "I'm trying to. I need a break from screens anyway." Helen nodded but didn't comment. "I'll let you get settled. If you need anything, I'm usually around. Just ring the bell downstairs." She left, closing the door quietly behind her, and Maya stood alone in the room, staring out at the Pacific. She'd been desperate to get here, had driven north like someone fleeing a burning building, but now that she'd arrived, she had no idea what to do next. "This is what you wanted," she reminded herself. Silence. Time to breathe. But her chest still felt tight. Her mind still raced. The anxiety that had plagued her for months, the feeling of drowning even while standing on solid ground, hadn't magically disappeared just because she'd changed her zip code. Maya sank into one of the chairs by the window and pulled out her phone. 15 missed calls. 37 text messages. She scrolled through them without reading, a habit she'd developed over the past week. Marcus's name appeared over and over. So did her mother's. Her former boss's. One text caught her eye though. From Priya, her closest friend from work. "I know you said you need space and I'm trying to respect that. But please just let me know you're okay. One word. That's all I need. Love you." Maya's fingers hovered over the keyboard. She started to type, deleted it, started again. Finally, "I'm okay. The ocean. Need this. Sorry." She hit send before she could overthink it, then turned off her phone and shoved it into her purse. It took her 3 trips to bring all her bags up from the car. 2 suitcases, a laptop bag, a box of books, and another box of art supplies she'd grabbed on impulse from her apartment. When everything was piled in the corner of the room, Maya stood looking at it, feeling a wave of exhaustion that had nothing to do with the drive or the stairs. What am I going to do with all this time? The question felt both liberating and terrifying. For the last 7 years, every minute of her life had been scheduled, optimized, accounted for. Wake at 6. Gym by 6:30. Office by 8. Meetings, deadlines, presentations, reviews. Lunch at her desk. More meetings. Leave around 8 or 9 or 10 depending on the crisis of the day. Answer emails. Leap. Repeat. She'd been so proud of her productivity, so sure that the exhaustion was just the price of success, that the anxiety attacks were just stress, that the feeling of watching her own life from the outside was just normal. Until the morning she'd woken up at 5 a.m., gotten ready for work, and then sat on the edge of her bed unable to move. Unable to face another day of it. Unable to remember why any of it mattered. Dr. Chin called it burnout. Her boss called it a sabbatical. Marcus called it a waste of her potential. Maya called it survival. She unpacked methodically, using the ritual to quiet her mind. Clothes in the dresser. Toiletries in the bathroom. Laptop on the table, still closed. She wasn't ready for that yet. Books stacked on the nightstand. The art supplies she left in the box, not sure what had possessed her to bring them in the first place. She hadn't drawn anything in years. When everything was put away, she sat back in the chair by the window and simply watched the ocean. The light was different now, softer, as the afternoon aged toward evening. The wind had picked up, sending whitecaps racing across the surface of the water. Maya watched them appear and disappear, the pattern hypnotic in its repetition. How long she sat there, she wasn't sure. Long enough for the light to turn golden. Long enough for her shoulders to drop away from her ears. Long enough for her breathing to slow, to match the rhythm of the waves. This is what healing looks like, she thought. Just existing. Without purpose. Without agenda. Without having to be anything for anyone. The thought should have been comforting, but instead, it triggered a spike of anxiety. Because if she wasn't senior creative director Maya Torres, if she wasn't the woman who always had the answer, who always delivered, who always succeeded, then who was she? That's what you're here to figure out, Dr. Chen's voice reminded her. Maya closed her eyes and tried to believe it. By the time hunger finally drove her out of the room, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that would have looked fake in a photograph. Maya had changed into jeans and a sweater. Her work wardrobe of tailored blazers and designer dresses felt absurdly out of place here, and pulled her hair into a ponytail. The lobby was empty when she came downstairs, and the main street was equally quiet as she walked toward the kettle. The few people she passed, a man walking a dog, an elderly woman checking her mailbox, nodded at her with a kind of casual friendliness that felt foreign after years in the city, where eye contact with strangers was practically aggressive. The diner was small, maybe 10 tables, with a counter running along one side and a kitchen visible through a pass-through window. Half the tables were occupied, though occupied was generous. Most had single diners, focused on their meals with a concentration of people eating alone by choice rather than circumstance. A woman in her 40s with auburn hair and an apron looked up from behind the counter and smiled. "Sit anywhere, hon. I'll be right with you." Maya chose a booth by the window, sliding into the vinyl seat that had been patched with duct tape in several places. A laminated menu stood between the salt and pepper shakers. She picked it up, scanning the offerings. Comfort food mostly. Burgers, sandwiches, fish and chips. A section labeled Helen's Homemade Soups. That changed daily. Nothing fancy. Nothing trying too hard. It was perfect. The waitress appeared with a glass of water and a warm smile. Her name tag read Ruth. First time in Thornberry Bay. That obvious. Small town. We notice new faces. Ruth pulled a pen from behind her ear. Though to be fair, we notice pretty much everything. Don't let it spook you. We're nosy, but mostly harmless. Maya found herself smiling. Good to know. You staying at Helen's place? The tide's in, yes. Ah. Ruth's expression softened with understanding. Then you're probably here for the quiet. Helen has a radar for people who need a break from the world. What can I get you? Maya ordered the fish and chips without really thinking about it, and Ruth disappeared back toward the kitchen. Left alone, Maya looked around the diner, taking in the details. The yellowed photographs on the wall showing Thornberry Bay in its prime, the local newspaper on the counter, dated 3 days ago, the chalkboard by the door advertising a community meeting about the pier renovation. Life here moved at a different speed. That much was obvious. But it wasn't just slower, it was deliberate in a way Maya couldn't quite articulate. People here seemed to actually taste their food, actually listen to conversations, actually exist in their moments instead of already thinking 3 steps ahead to the next task, the next meeting, the next crisis. Could I do that? Maya wondered. Could I learn to just be? The door chimed and a man entered, mid-50s, weather-beaten face, wearing a heavy jacket despite the mild evening. He nodded at Ruth, who called out, "Usual, Ben? Please." He took a seat at the counter, and Ruth poured him coffee without asking. They exchanged a few words Maya couldn't hear, but their ease with each other was obvious. This was routine, comfortable, known. When had Maya last felt that kind of comfort? That kind of knowing? Even with Marcus, whom she'd dated for 3 years, there'd always been a performance aspect to their relationship. They'd been perfect on paper, both ambitious, both successful, both determined to build impressive lives. But had she ever just relaxed around him? Ever felt like she could show him the messy, uncertain, struggling parts of herself? Well, because he'd admired her for being the opposite of those things. For being capable, composed, always together. The realization settled over her like a weight. Ruth returned with her food, a generous portion of battered fish and golden fries, along with a small cup of tartar sauce and a lemon wedge. "Careful," she warned. "Plate's hot." "Thank you. Need anything else?" Maya shook her head, and Ruth moved on to check on the other tables. Maya picked up her fork, cut a piece of fish and took a bite. It was good. Really good. The fish was fresh, the batter light and crispy, and someone had clearly cared about making it right. Maya ate slowly, surprising herself by actually tasting each bite instead of mechanically shoveling food in while scrolling through her phone or reviewing documents. This is nice, she thought. This is okay. The anxiety was still there, humming in the background like tinnitus. But it was quieter than it had been in months. Or maybe she was just too tired to fuel it anymore. She was halfway through her meal when the door chimed again, and a different kind of energy entered the diner. Maya looked up to see a woman in her 30s, blonde hair in a messy bun, wearing paint-splattered overalls and carrying a canvas tote bag that appeared to be losing its battle with gravity. "Ruth," the woman called out cheerfully. "Tell me you have pie. Please tell me you have pie. I've had the kind of day that can only be fixed by sugar and carbs. When don't I have pie?" Ruth called back from the kitchen. "Grab a seat." The blonde woman scanned the diner, her gaze landing on Maya. For a second, Maya thought she'd move on to another table, but instead, she walked straight over. "You're new," she said, as if this were a perfectly normal way to start a conversation. "Mind if I join you? All the other tables are taken by regulars who'll want to talk about the weather or the peer committee or whose kid is doing what, and I've already heard it all twice today." Maya blinked, caught off guard. Sure. Great." The woman slid into the opposite side of the booth and dumped her bag on the seat beside her. Something that looked suspiciously like a paintbrush fell out. "I'm Sienna, by the way. Jenna Cross. I run the art supply store, though run is generous considering I have maybe 3 customers a week." "Maya Torres. Maya. Pretty name. Are you here for work or escape? Is there a third option?" Sienna's grin was infectious. "Not in Thornbury Bay. We basically only get people who have to be here or people who need to be here. You have the look of the latter. No offense." None taken. Maya found herself relaxing despite, or maybe because of, Sienna's directness. There was something refreshing about someone who didn't bother with small talk. Is it that obvious? The way you're holding your shoulders like you're waiting for someone to tell you you're doing something wrong? Yeah, pretty obvious. Sienna leaned back as Ruth appeared with a plate carrying a massive slice of apple pie. You're a saint, Ruth. I know. Ruth glanced at Maya. Everything okay with your food? It's great. Really? Good. Ruth moved on, and Sienna dug into her pie with the enthusiasm of someone who really had earned it. So what do you do? Sienna asked between bites. When you're not hiding in small coastal towns. I was a creative director. Tech company in San Francisco. Was. I quit. Ah. Sienna nodded knowingly. Burnout. Something like that. It's going around. We had a guy last month, financed something off from LA, stayed 3 weeks, barely left his room, then went back and apparently started a furniture-making business in his garage. Helen has that effect on people. Helen. She owns the inn where I'm guessing you're staying. She's like, I don't know, a magnet for broken people. Not broken. Sienna amended quickly. Just dinged. Dented. In need of some space to figure their shit out. No judgment, by the way. I'm here for the same reason. Maya studied the other woman with new interest. Sienna radiated a kind of chaotic energy that seemed at odds with the sleepy pace of Thornbury Bay. How long have you been here? 3 years. Came for a weekend, stayed for. She gestured vaguely. Whatever this is. I was a graphic designer in Portland before. Good job, nice apartment, boyfriend who looked perfect on paper but treated me like I was his project to optimize. One day I realized I didn't recognize myself anymore. So I left. Just like that. Just like that. Scariest thing I've ever done. Also the best. Sienna took another bite of pie. Though I'll be honest, the first few months were rough. When you're used to the noise, the silence can be deafening, you know. Maya knew exactly what she meant. Even now, sitting in the diner with the low hum of conversation around her, part of her brain kept waiting for the next email, the next meeting, the next crisis. The absence of constant demands felt less like relief and more like vertigo. Does it get easier? Maya asked quietly. The silence. All of it. Being still. Existing without a purpose. Sienna's expression softened. Who says you don't have a purpose? Maybe your purpose right now is just to breathe. To sleep. To eat pie. She pushed her plate toward the center of the table in offering. To let yourself be a person instead of a productivity machine. Maya looked at the pie but didn't reach for it. What if I don't know how to be just a person anymore? Then you learn. That's what this place is good for. Sienna leaned forward, her elbows on the table. Look, I'm not going to pretend I have all the answers. I still have days where I wake up panicking about whether I'm wasting my life here. But then I go down to the beach or I paint for a few hours or I have a conversation with someone who actually sees me, not the productive version of me, just me, and I remember why I stayed. What's the art supply store like? Maya asked, partly because she was curious and partly because she wanted to shift the conversation away from her own uncertainty. Sienna laughed. Struggling, honestly. Turns out a town of 1,800 people doesn't need much in the way of canvas and oil paints. But I keep it open because, I don't know. 'Cause it feels good to be in a space dedicated to creating things. Because sometimes tourists wander in and actually buy something. Because I can't imagine doing anything else right now. Do you sell your own work? Sometimes. There's a gallery about 20 miles south that takes a few pieces. Mostly I paint because I can't not paint. It's the only thing that quiets my brain. She studied Maya for a moment. You look like someone who used to create things. Before you got too busy being important. Maya felt the observation like a dart hitting a bullseye. She had created things once. That's what had drawn her to design in the first place. The joy of making something beautiful, something meaningful. But somewhere along the way, creation had become commodity. Art had become assets. And she'd become too valuable to waste time on anything that didn't have an immediate ROI. I used to paint, Maya admitted. Not well. But I enjoyed it. You should start again. I don't know if I remember how. That's the beauty of paint. It doesn't care whether you remember. It just cares whether you show up. Sienna finished her pie and pushed the plate aside. Come by the shop tomorrow if you want. I'll give you the broke artist discount on supplies. No pressure though. Only if you feel like it. Maybe, Maya said, knowing she probably wouldn't but appreciating the offer anyway. They talked for a while longer. About nothing important, about the town, about the quirks of its residents, about the upcoming storm that everyone kept mentioning. Sienna had the kind of easy conversational style that required no effort to maintain, and Maya found herself relaxing further, the knot in her chest loosening another degree. When Sienna finally left, claiming she had to feed her cat before it staged a revolt, Maya sat alone in the booth for a few more minutes, nursing a cup of coffee and watching the last of the sunset fade from the sky. Day one, she thought. I survived day one. It wasn't much. But it was something. Walking back to the inn, Maya noticed things she'd missed on the drive-in. The way the streetlights cast long shadows across the empty storefronts. The sound of wind chimes from someone's porch. The smell of wood smoke from a chimney. The ocean, always present. Its sound a constant backdrop to everything. The lobby was empty when she returned, but a light was on in a back room, and she could hear the faint sound of music. Something classical, strings and piano. Helen was still awake then. Still present. Maya wondered if the woman ever slept, or if running an inn in a dying town meant being perpetually on call for whatever guests wandered through. Upstairs, her room was exactly as she'd left it, which shouldn't have been surprising but somehow was. Maya was used to hotel housekeeping, to returning to spaces that had been reset, made generic again. But this room already felt like hers, even after just a few hours. Her books on the nightstand. Her sweater on the chair. Her view through the window. She changed into pajamas, washed her face, and climbed into bed. The sheets smelled like lavender, either detergent or maybe sachets in the linen closet. The mattress was softer than she was used to, and the pillow seemed designed for someone who actually relaxed when they slept, instead of someone who unconsciously clenched every muscle against tomorrow's demands. Through the window she could see stars. Actual stars, not the handful visible through San Francisco's light pollution, but a whole scattered wealth of them. Maya stared at them for a long time, trying to remember the last time she'd noticed the sky. Trying to remember the last time she'd noticed anything beyond the endless scroll of her to-do list. Her phone, still turned off, sat in her purse like a small bomb. She thought about turning it on, checking messages, maintaining her connections to the life she'd left. But the thought exhausted her. Tomorrow. She'd deal with all of it tomorrow. For tonight she'd just be here. In this room. In this moment. breathing. The sound of the ocean filled the space, and Maya closed her eyes, letting it wash over her. She didn't expect to sleep. Insomnia had been her companion for months, her mind too active to ever truly rest. But the rhythm of the waves was hypnotic, and the darkness was complete, and at some point between one breath and the next, she drifted off. For the first time in months, she slept through the night. And she didn't dream at all.